And we are on. How are you, heart surfers? Welcome to Healing Me Before We. So, heart surfers, I want to ask you, are you rolling with the waves of love and happiness, or are you standing by the rocks? We bring to you a unique way of uncovering limited beliefs about relationships through examining common cliches. Relationship specialist, me, Sharon Reed, the Heart Lady, and Dan, the Healing Man, we bring to you this exciting episode talking about cliches. So let's welcome. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Aloha, Sharon. Aloha, Heart Surface. I'm doing great. I want to say Happy New Year once again to everyone. I was told that you're not supposed to say it like 3 days beyond, and you know what? I'm a rebel. And
Really?
so I say Happy New Year to everyone on this
I didn't know
later
that was a
day of the
thing.
month.
I didn't know that was a thing. I still say Happy New Year when I see it for the whole month of January.
Of course, it usually takes me like 3 months by the time I change on the date. I still stay in the old date for about 3 months before I can really make that
Before you
kind of an
put the,
adjustment.
the next year, change
Yes.
it from 23 to 24. I get you. So,
I'm a slow changer or adapter in that way. Today's cliche is there is no I in team.
there we
It's another
go.
cliche that I'm sure we've all heard, especially when we play sports. And
Yeah,
most of us have been on a sports team in our lives, and the coach makes sure to emphasize that phrase. There's no I in team because
mhm,
when we talk about a sports team, it's a group of players all playing to achieve a common goal, to win the
yeah,
championship. And the only way
yeah,
that can be done is by everybody playing together as a team, which
yeah,
lends itself to the idea of sacrifice, right? That I
mhm,
will sacrifice myself, let's say my
yeah,
scoring, my shooting, my playing on the field with less selfishness and more
yeah,
generosity to pass it if it's a ball or something like that. And
yeah,
so when we talk about sports teams, we hear that phrase all the time. What happens is phrases like there is no I in team then get extended or expanded to
mhm,
other things outside of the playing field. And that includes in everything in the world now in our lives. We are continuously told that we are here for others.
yeah,
And that even expands into our relationships, including our significant other. That
yeah,
if we want to have a great relationship that thrives, there's that ironic word, then what we recognize is in order to have a thriving relationship or marriage, we have to put ourselves after the other person. And so we are discouraged to put ourselves first in the relationship if we want the relationship to work out.
I agree. We are encouraged, especially females are encouraged to put others before themselves. And that's where there's the lack of nurturing for self and prioritizing and understanding that we have to take care of ourselves first in order to take care of the family, the relationship, and be able to find some type of balance or harmony between work, if we do work outside the home, if we work inside the home and don't have a traditional 9 to 5, we still have work that we need to balance within the home. So and then oftentimes in couples and in marriages, partners who live together, there's always this traditional belief that certain uh, genders have to do particular chores, right? And
Yes.
so So then we get skewed with the I and team, but there is, I was reading a quote earlier, and there may not be an I in team, but there is an E, and E is for everyone, right? So we want to be able to, um, however the relationship is to remember that it is a team effort. However, in order to be a valuable partner in the team, we have to do our part. That means we have to be able to set the good habits for ourselves. We have to, like in any sports team, we have to practice, so we have to be mindful of how we show up, and that is an individual effort so that we can create the best team partnership.
It's funny. You just said, and so I think of the letter I, right? And you said a couple of
Mm-hmm,
different words, intention, right? And we
mm-hmm,
have to be intentional. And you
mm-hmm,
said everyone, and everyone to me means inclusive, including, here's the word I'm going to bring in, me. And so
mm-hmm,
the response to there is no I in team is there is a me in team. And that's part of the
mm-hmm,
inclusivity, that I, as a member of the team, I am included in that team. And it's important that
yes,
I give myself that kind of recognition of how important I am to the success of the team, including the
that's right.
team of marriage, right? The team
Yes,
of being in a relationship with someone else. And
yeah.
the other thing I reflected upon is how we speak grammatically in our
Mm-hmm,
culture, that seldom, even in this podcast and in the previous podcasts that you and I have created together, inclusively, the team of us, is how we seldom speak in the first person and say I.
mm-hmm,
And so we are discouraged from speaking in the first person of I in our culture, because we may be seen as selfish. And that's one of the big things that I often want to speak about, is this whole idea of what selfishness is and how it's perceived in such a negative manner, or
mm-hmm,
taken even further to narcissist, right? I think that's one of the biggest
mm-hmm,
fears now, is that we are
mm-hmm,
afraid that we will be perceived not only as selfish, we may even be perceived as narcissistic.
mm-hmm.
And so out of that fear, or guilt, blame, and shame, three feelings that I've mentioned before, we then conduct ourselves in a way that isn't really authentic to who we are, to who I am, to me. And me is what I really say is my empowerment. Me means my empowerment in the
Mm.
relationship, and how important that is to the relationship to thrive.
That is a excellent point, and the term narcissist for the whole 2023, as far as relationship concerned, I feel that was the word of the year. Everyone was a narcissist. Um,
Yes.
however, I wouldn't say that, according to the definitions of narcissism, that being equating of finding your individualism in your partnership. Um, and that we have to be mindful that, and that I think both Dan and I are saying the same thing, is that we do have to uh, emphasize ourselves, the I, in our relationship, as knowing that we do have a say. We are prioritizing ourselves. Being selfish is not necessarily um, not working together. Uh, is not in a negative term. Being selfish is self care,
Yes.
and if we look at it in that terms, yes. However, Also, on the same note, I'm not saying that we don't work together because a relationship is a partnership. A relationship is a team, and there definitely we have to work together. So, there are times where, especially when I'm coaching um, couples, that I would say, remember, it is still the relationship is still about the us. It's
Mhm.
still about the unity that we want to produce to each other. But if one is controlling the other, then the other person is no longer to operate in their empowerment and operate
Mhm.
the ME in team. So, so I totally I don't want people to misconstrue that we're saying in relationships that just look out for yourself, because then you wouldn't have a relationship if you just look out for yourself. But we are totally emphasizing that you have to um, incorporate self care and make that um, a main priority so that
Mhm.
you can nurture better relationships. Because if you're not your 100% self, then your cup will be empty and you won't have anything else to give and create other issues as well.
You don't give from a place of abundance, you
Yeah,
give from a place of scarcity.
yeah.
And
So
and and that's not the way to thrive. That's how people survive when they give from a place of scarcity rather than abundance. I
yeah.
wanted to go back to our previous podcast that we talked about New Year's resolutions and how
Mm,
often they people don't succeed in them. And I was reflecting upon that as well. And that's because
hmm.
let's say you make a New Year's resolution to start going to the gym, okay? And you do start going. And then all of a sudden, because you're in a relationship, and let's say you have a family and you have a spouse and you have children, and you're
Yeah.
exercising on that machine, and you start thinking about how selfish you are to be there while you could be somewhere else serving others, right? You could be taking your
Hmm.
children to their activity, you could be home cooking dinner for your spouse. And so
Yeah.
all of a sudden you begin to say, oh, I should be somewhere else instead of focusing on myself at this time. And that's what happens in many cases why people don't follow through on what they set out for themselves, because others become their priority over themselves. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it isn't important to take others into consideration. As you said, it's a collaborative effort. Of course it is.
Yeah.
When you have a spouse, when
Yeah.
you have a family, and it's important that everyone help out and be a part of that collaboration. And it's also all right though to put yourself first at times in the relationship, whether you're in
Yeah.
a marriage, a family, whatever kind of relationship it is, to be able to nurture yourself in a way that you
Yeah.
are now in more of a place of abundance. And so that when you get
Yeah.
home, you are in a place of abundance in your ability to now be of further help and service to others.
Yeah, I get you. I was thinking about what you were saying is that, some people, you may be at the gym or you may be doing something else when you really feel like you should be
Mhm.
doing something for others. And I was thinking about, um, I should be in the bed sleeping a little longer, but I have to get up to take care of others. So I fall into that trap sometimes. I want to tell the viewers and the listeners that Dan was teasing me this morning. We tape this early in the morning, and I was on time, and Dan said, "Oh, so was that your New Year's resolution?" I had to share that. It wasn't a New Year's resolution, but I was telling him it was an intention. I usually have him waiting about. He'll probably say 10 minutes, but I'm gonna stick to 5 minutes.
Well, The other thing, you and I were talking about this morning, though, too, is playing to each other's strengths, and
Yes,
so
yes.
in all teams, if people want to thrive and succeed in their teams, they have to recognize the other person's strengths and
Yeah,
play to each other's strengths. What to me, that's a no-brainer, right? You
yeah,
want to see how the other person is gifted in their strengths and what they bring into the relationship, and use that
yeah.
as the platform for the relationship to thrive.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that is, I think that's the most significant is to be able to recognize each other's strengths and um, and the things that they may need improvement on, but don't uh, criticize or make the person feel so bad, um, demean and devalue the person because they may have a challenge like being on time,
Or it could
but
be
if
the
you recognize
financials, right?
or
The
financial
financial
or
books.
whatever. Yes, absolutely. I'm
Or
teasing
it could
because
be a variety of things, right? The
yes,
person who's the better cook, the person
yeah,
who's the better whatever it is in the relationship that is important for the relationship to succeed and thrive. It doesn't mean that the
yeah,
other
no,
person, you used another word, practice, right? The way
yeah,
we
yeah,
improve is by practicing. It doesn't mean
yeah,
then just throwing it all to the other person and saying, okay, well, you do that, and
yeah,
that plays to your strength, and so I can do something else, and that can
yeah,
work. It can also be, though, an opportunity for the one person to teach the other person, to help them
yeah.
without the
I was just
criticism,
gonna say
without the
that. Yeah,
judgment.
educate. Absolutely. I had a couple who and their main issue was finances. As you know, arguments over finances is one of the biggest reasons a lot
Biggest,
of
yeah.
couples break up or divorce, right? And so, I suggested that who was stronger with doing the finances, and when they figured out who was the strongest, I said, so why don't you be the captain of that, and then create a system and then ask your partner to not ask, but why don't you teach your partner, educate your partner? Why don't you even take an online course or go to the SBA or school and take a finance class together, and so that you both can work together with the finances and also, set limits and really discuss what is important, who's going to pay what, how is this going to be paid, and work it out that way. And I was so glad to hear earlier this week they called me and said, they had a joint account and that they were who was taking over what and who was doing what bills and how good they felt that they were able to share and understand how the finances was operating in their household. So that's a great example of knowing
That
each
is.
other's and working together as a team. And we don't have to let finances in particular break us apart. It's just re-educating and seeing who has the strength and let them work in that power and then uplift you in yours.
Well, and that is a wonderful example of collaboration. And I believe that that's only possible when that judgment and criticism when they are removed from the
Yeah,
situation, because
yeah,
otherwise then the person is feeling, judged, and when
yeah,
I feel judged, I don't want to perform for you
right.
or with
And you
you.
get very defensive. Yeah, I
Resentful, bitter,
uh,
all of those things. Yeah.
right. And that's what I was saying. I said, this is not about thinking about we can't get along or we're breaking up. This is not about the relationship. This is about the situation.
Mm.
So let's help to resolve the situation. because it's not the fact that you don't love and care for each other, and want to be with each other. You just don't like how both of you are handling the situation. If we handle the situation, then you'll be able to have a better communication and improve upon the relationship at large. But it's not the relationship, it's just the situation.
Well, I agree with you. It's so important that we recognize that when we get into a relationship with someone else, that
Hmm.
it's a challenge. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
challenge to be in a relationship with ourselves because who are we the most critical with in our lives?
yeah,
Ourselves.
that's right, ourselves, yeah.
And so when we get into a relationship with someone else, that that self-criticism is going to sort of spread or expand over into the relationship with the other
Yeah,
person as well. And we are all judgmental. I mean,
yeah,
there's not one of us that isn't judgmental. And
yeah,
it doesn't mean though we have to be defined by that judgment. And that's why it's
that's
so
right.
important when you and I talk about this podcast of me before we,
Hmm.
it's not about being selfish. You said it's about self-care. You know, one of the things I talk about when I say selfish, when I lead groups, I say that selfish means I give myself a fish first. So I feed
Hmm.
myself first in order to be
Hmm.
able to be in a place of abundance, and from that place of abundance to spill over into my relationships with others. So
That's
then I'm
right.
not going to
Yeah.
be as critical of others. I'm not going to be as judgmental of others if I have
Hmm.
begun and practiced with myself first.
That's right. That's right. Practicing with yourself first, creating those good habits, being disciplined with yourself. So, therefore, it is easy for you to have boundaries with your partner, but also be able to work together as a team. So, Heart Surfers, really hope that you enjoy this episode of Me Before We. And we'd really love to you to comment and let us know, how do you practice the I in the team? How do you practice? Can you find the I in team? Um, but definitely, what do you do? How can we support and serve you? Our intention is to truly support. Hey, if you have a cliche that you would like for us to explore and discuss, please share it with us. We look forward to your comments, and we look forward to sharing with you. So, Dan, do you have any tips for us as far as our cliche? What was I before? Oh, I was going to say I before E, except
Oh,
after
I
C.
before E, except after C, with the
Yeah,
English language and the challenges that we face there. Yeah. And then there are always exceptions. And
always
I think,
exceptions.
that's 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 the challenge of the English language and why it's so difficult to learn is because every time you think you've got it down, there's another exception.
There's
And
another
isn't that kind
exception.
of how life really is?
Yeah,
Life is not that predictable thing that we sort of want it to be, right? Or need it to be for safety and security.
so,
That
yeah,
there's always that next thing that's going to pop up,
yeah,
and that's including in our relationships.
yeah.
Every time we think we're at a place in our relationship where we're stable and we're
Mhm.
consistent and we're secure, something else comes into the relationship that we weren't expecting, the
Yeah.
unexpected.
And it's okay. I mean, it
And
feels
it can be
challenging, but it's
absolutely
fun
wonderful,
and
or it could
interesting.
be an awful thing. It's all
Yeah,
about how we receive it or
to
perceive
see
it.
it. Absolutely.
Are we threatened by it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
So,
are we looking at it as with curiosity and an opportunity to do something different and something wonderful, to
yeah.
take the relationship to the next level,
Are we
to
gonna
take it
roll
from a
with the?
place of surviving to
That's
thriving?
right. Are we gonna roll with the waves, or are we gonna stand by the rocks? Are we gonna sink? Are we going to dive? Are we going to swim? So there you have it, folks. Oh, I do have a quote. Let me see. My quote is I saw a couple of nice quotes about teamwork. And here's one by Bill Bradley. And he says, respect your fellow human, treat them fairly, disagree with them honestly, enjoy the friendship, explore your thoughts about one another candidly, work together for a common goal, and help one another achieve it. No destructive lies, no ridiculous fears, and no debilitating anger. Wow, that is powerful.
Yeah, that's a
That
lot.
is that is a lot for what he had to say about teamwork. And this is another quote that I found much shorter. Trust is knowing that when a team member does push you, they're doing it because they care about the
Hmm.
team. So that is it for us today. Remember to respect your fellow human being, respect your partner, treat them fairly, treat yourself fairly.
Mm.
I love this one. Disagree with them honestly. Powerful, powerful.
That's my favorite. And
Yeah,
not just because it's the
powerful.
shortest. One of the
Well,
things
that
that
was all part of his of Bill Bradley's long quote. But I think
one
each
of the things that
sentence was
I
really
really
powerful. So
like
I
is it's
appreciate that.
okay. We can agree to disagree.
All right, Dan.
We don't always
Um,
have to agree.
I
Even
think
you and I,
that's
Sharon,
it for our
we
episode.
don't always
We
necessarily
like
agree on
to
things.
keep your
And that's a
attention. So
wonderful
we
thing
know
because it
20,
presents an
yeah, we know
opportunity for
20 to 30
dialogue. It
minutes is
presents,
about it, right?
that's right.
All right. So, Hard Surfers, we look forward to seeing and hearing from you in our next episode. All right, y'all take care for now.
All
Sharon,
right.
the Heart Lady.
Surf's up.